I'm Rob Shields, and this is Peace Talks, the podcast that covers everything to do with competitive jigsaw puzzling. Devon Donaldson is a Canadian speed puzzling champion who won the Canadian Nationals individuals, teams, and pairs events in sequential years. In this episode, we talk about how she pushed through plateaus in her puzzling journey, which Canadians to watch at Worlds in September, and how she's developing the next wave of Canadian talent. Devon Donaldson, thanks for joining Peace Talks.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
This is my pleasure. Let's begin at the beginning. What was your earliest jigsaw puzzle memory?
Like a lot of puzzlers, Rob, I grew up doing jigsaw puzzles. I remember every Christmas I would wait for a puzzle under the Christmas tree. It was usually a 3D puzzle.
Really?
Though, yeah, at that time, I loved the 3D puzzles. It was a great sense of satisfaction picking out those little squares with the red dots and putting those in a bag to make sure I could go check them later, and then assembling. I had a castle at one point. There was Harry Potter ones at one point. Cool. It was really cool. So after that, I pivoted to, the more traditional cardboard type puzzles, but I've been doing puzzles my whole life.
And when you say after that, do you mean that you made a conscious decision, or just that was what was available to you?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that, because there was one year where my mom picked out a puzzle I had already done. So I think I ran out of 3D puzzles. So that one sat on the shelf for a bit. And then we just started building the collection of, the more traditional cardboard type jigsaw puzzles.
Now, you say building the collection, was somebody in your family a puzzler to begin with? Were your parents interested in puzzling and just having puzzles around, or was this driven by you?
My grandparents, actually, on both sides were puzzlers, but specifically on my mom's side, when my grandparents would watch the baseball game, Go Jays Go, very Toronto, yeah, we would do puzzles. We would sit there and have a puzzle that didn't quite fit on the coffee table, so maybe you couldn't always complete the edge, but we'd do our best, and I remember sitting there on the floor listening to the game and finishing the puzzles that they would start, and I would typically sit there and finish them.
And is there a time where you remember thinking that puzzles were something that you were explicitly more interested in than the common person might be?
I think so. I think throughout university and even thereafter, when I would make every effort to find new interesting puzzles and then just do them for leisure, looking around, not a lot of my friends were super into puzzles. And so that was kind of the nod that maybe this was a hobby I really wanted to explore. Rather than just a pastime that most everybody does when they're kids.
Were you doing other things besides jigsaw puzzling that maybe used the same skills or the same capabilities? Is jigsaw puzzling really where you focused your area of interest, or was it just one of a cluster of things?
I think there's a couple clusters. Another one is any Legend of Zelda video game ever made. I am a big fan of Nintendo games. That's my dad's fault. Absolutely. So he got us into that quite young, right? Yeah. I remember being a kid and handing him the controller when it was just too hard of a part. And these days he doesn't even touch the controller. He just lets me do it. So yeah. So that was definitely another interest. Those are the two major ones outside of academics and, doing well in career and coming home, listening to a podcast, and doing a nice puzzle.
Was there a time where you felt like you were specifically fast at puzzling? How did you transition from being a hobbyist puzzler to being a person who wanted to potentially explore competing at the puzzle level?
I didn't know about competitive jigsaw puzzling until, and I'm sure many people have the same experience, until we saw Karen Puzzles cover the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship. The first one she did the summaries of, they were fantastic. And it was like a light bulb went off to say, I can crush 1,000-piece puzzle in less than a day. And so I had people, family, friends for Christmas, for birthdays, buying bigger and bigger piece count puzzles just to keep me busy longer. Yeah.
Did they need you to stay out of trouble?
Maybe. That's quite likely. That's quite possible. But that was a signal to say, hey, maybe I could try this. So I did. This was, I think, summer of 2023.
Okay.
Because 2023 was the first Worlds I went to, and that was my first competition ever, actually. But summer of 2023, I tried a speed run. puzzle. I just tried one, just timed it, didn't practice it. It was the London postcard, very popular.
Yep.
And I finished it in roughly an hour 15, maybe an hour 17.
Okay.
For the first time ever speed running it. And I said, okay, that's not so bad.
No, right? Definitely
that's not
solid.
so bad at all.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could do it that fast already.
And so if that was the first time I had done that, I was like, wow, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's a core set of skills I could really build off. I didn't know what the skills would be other than go fast at that point in time. Right.
Uh-huh.
And then the first virtual competition I ever did was one of Jonathan's at speedpuzzling.com, one of his 500-piece solos, and I got 9th place. And nice. He emailed me after and he said, "Are you sure you haven't done this before?" And I thought that was such great encouragement, Rob. That really made my day. I don't think he knows that. That really made my day, hearing from someone who had been in the jigsaw world for so long and really in the competitive world and hosting all these competitions. And so I said to my husband, I said, "Can we go to Spain?" I wanted to try it so bad. I got 9th in
this online thing. Yeah. Can we go to Spain?
Can we just try it? Yeah. Just rip off the Band-Aid, do my first in-person competition ever. And so that's exactly what we did.
So, but was it literally that? Was it like you placed well in an online competition, you got some positive feedback, and then you were off to the races?
I think so.
That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just, I got the bug. I got it right away. And it's so satisfying to solve a puzzle on a good day, just a leisure puzzle, let alone, get your personal best on a speed run. It's so satisfying. So very quickly, I became very, very much into it.
That's awesome. So you were you decided that you were signed up to go to Worlds. You went off to Spain. It's your first in-person competition.
That's right.
You're now amongst a whole bunch of other people who were jigsaw puzzling enthusiasts. I imagine since this was your first competition, this is your first time amongst a bunch of other people who were thinking the same way. How did you take in this experience of like being in a puzzle community, walking into the big dome, like coming from just doing a couple of online competitions? I imagine that must have been interesting.
I would use another I word. It was wildly intimidating. It was energizing too. At the same time, you show up, you don't know anybody, right? I had my husband Doug do pairs with me, and at that point in time, Rob, he had never completed a puzzle on his own, but he was a great sport because I just wanted to experience as much as I could, and so we did pairs together. I did individuals. I was able to meet some other Canadians there as well, which was quite nice because some of them this was their first time going as well. They didn't know many people. And then just meeting the people you had seen online on the live streams, those top puzzlers. I was really shy. I said like 2 weird words to Kristen and ran away. I was like, oh, you're so fast, run away. It was I was a little starstruck, to be honest.
Amazing, yeah.
And it was a great experience. It was more difficult than I expected.
Oh,
I knew it would be
tricky.
Yeah. That making it to the finals in individuals,
which you did,
that was my goal. Make it to the finals. If I can crack the top 100 again, this is my first ever competition. That would be amazing. And sitting down in the finals, I realized, boy, do I have a lot of mindset work to do.
Really?
Oh boy, yes. The pressure I put on myself, the anxiety I felt sitting at that table, especially when I saw the puzzle image, which is not something. It was beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something I would choose. That's the one where it's the Italian cafe.
Oh yes, classic.
Yeah, with the chairs,
the notorious cafe. Yeah,
that's it. So the first half was fine. As soon as I got to the chairs, I felt like I was wading through molasses. But I learned a heck of a lot from that experience.
So I'm interested. You said your first thought was you had a lot of sort of mindset work to do. It doesn't sound like your first thought was, I need to work on some like physical skills. Like a lot of people would be like, oh, I just need to flip faster, or I need to work on getting edges stood up faster or something like that. But your first thought was mindset?
It was. And absolutely, there's other physical, like tactile skills to do as well. Get better, do drills, that kind of thing. But the the heat I felt rise in my face and the shake of my hands and the sweat on my hands, uh, it tells me there's some kind of mental trigger there
Uh-huh.
that I needed to really figure out what was going on so I could focus on all those other skills. So that was a big aha moment for me.
That's super interesting because I hear a lot of people whose like first major tournament competition experience is, generally speaking, they sort of are able to hide in being anonymous. And it's only once they've sort of stepped out and made a statement that they feel the pressure of it. But it sounds like you brought the pressure on yourself immediately.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll get into it, but I also felt that the second year at Canadian Nationals, that extra pressure.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely want to get to there. So, anything else to speak about on Worlds before we move on?
I think even if you don't believe you're going to make it to finals, or even if you're not achieving your personal bests time and time again, Worlds is an incredible experience, no matter what you do, no matter how you place, because of the community. And that is something we hear from puzzlers over and over and over again, whether it's Canadian Nationals. I've been down to the US for USA Nationals, Worlds. This global community is some of the coolest, most interesting people you'll ever meet. And everybody just lifts each other up. It's quite incredible. So if anybody gets a chance to go, I would say do it.
That leads me off to a quick tangent. So,
Yeah.
the puzzle community is, I think, well known to be extremely accepting and nice. Canadians are also notoriously very nice. Is it possible that the Canadian puzzling community is maybe the nicest community in the world?
I think so. I do. It's new and it's growing. And even the experience recently at Canadian Nationals this year, just everyone lifts each other up. Even if you're not doing your best, you're rooting for other people to do their very best. And it's exceptional.
Speaking of exceptional, at the end of Worlds, you went home and immediately were in the Canadian Nationals. What was the time
It
difference there?
was a week. It was a week later.
It was a week later. So we went
Yeah.
from competing on the international stage to competing on the national stage. What was the Canadian Nationals like in 2023? Was that the first year that it existed?
It was. Yeah. It was the first year it existed. They still had all three rounds:
Mm-hmm.
individuals, pairs, and teams. I didn't compete in teams at Worlds or at the first Nationals, but I did individual and pairs again with Doug, lucky guy.
This had been
Yeah.
his, what, like second puzzle that he completed?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. But we met so many interesting people there. And it's still at the same location. It's been at the same location in Georgetown, Ontario for 3 years. So this year going back, it felt like, going back home, seeing the same sort of people, welcoming new people. But that first Nationals, speaking of pressure, it's like, well, I've just been to Worlds. I got 75th in the world. Now I'm going to the first Canadian Nationals. Don't mess up.
And did you see other people at the Canadian Nationals that you'd met at Worlds?
There was a handful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there was a handful of folks, which was kind of neat to see them that next weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to imagine like seeing people in Spain and being like, I'll see you in Canada next week.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there was a preliminary round for the individuals and you finished fourth for that. But then in the final round for individuals, you crushed that puzzle. It looked like, I think your time was like 39 minutes, 22 seconds, which seemed like it was sort of unprecedented for you.
It was.
Where did that come from?
Well, honest to goodness, I just got really frustrated with the cat fur and that qualification puzzle. And I said, no, we're going to give it all I have, see what I can do here. And it was just, that puzzle was perfect for me. It was my personal best too at that time, because I'd been in like 1.5 competitions by that point. So it was personal best. So it was really good. But I just sat there and thought to myself, remember that mindset thing I was thinking about at Worlds is, I want this. I want this. I'm going to give it all I have, put everything into it, not let myself get distracted by the stress or anxiety I was feeling, and see what I can do.
And was that just a will, or did you have like techniques to sort of push down the noise that wanted to get in your head?
I'm so glad you asked, because I used to be a micro sorter.
Yes.
It made me feel comfortable and safe almost, because I had my teeny tiny projects all over the place. And that puzzle at at the 2023 Nationals individual final was perfect for micro sorting. It was perfect. So I did that. I spent I think it was about 8 minutes sorting.
Yeah.
At the beginning, so pulling at the edges and sorting into little piles of color and the textures on that illustration, and then I just went for it. I just actually crushed through all of the sections of that puzzle. And I think that the gap between me and second place, which was Sophie, who became my world's partner the following year,
Sophie Helg.
It was, it was about 3 minutes, maybe.
3 minutes, like 3 seconds.
So that was quite the accomplishment. But can I tell you something extra funny about this? So that day, my husband, he was supposed to travel for work the following day, but his flight got canceled. So we had to bump up his flight to go overseas. And so in between the qualification round and the final, I had to drive him to the airport. So I had to go drop him off at the airport and came back, and it was just me by myself doing the puzzle. And I ended up becoming the 2023 Canadian individual champion.
So how'd you feel about that? Like you found that you were pretty good just a couple of months before, enough that you wanted to do some virtual competitions. You went to Worlds, you were 75th in the individuals. So you got through all 3 rounds, which is a heck of an achievement. And then you come to the Canadian Nationals, you knock out the prelims at 4th, and then you crush the final ones. This seems like a great arc so far.
So far. I felt really good because I was falling in love with the sport. I really was. And I said, this is something I can do. This is something that maybe I could get really, really good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then, those plateaus that sneak up on you. Mm-hmm. So the next year or so, I struggled with a few plateaus that I really had to push through and totally rethink how I did puzzles.
The next Canadian Nationals was actually only a few short months later, 7 months if I'm doing my calendar math right. You probably hadn't seen the plateau yet. Is that fair?
It.
Yeah, because you're probably doing online competitions still at this point. So you have some idea of what your skill level is, but you're way early in your experience. So now you've got the added pressure of being the Canadian champion. Tell me about how the 2024 Canadian Nationals went.
That's it. Yeah. So the added pressure, this would be my first time doing all 3 rounds, and Doug was off the hook this time. He did not need to join me because through all of these experiences, I met some really great people to puzzle with. So Sophie Helg became my pairs partner at 2024 Canadian Nationals, and Sophie and I teamed up with 2 other gals. We called ourselves the A team. So it was myself and Sophie Helg, and then we had Corinne Tremblay from Quebec as well. So Sophie and Corinne are from Quebec. And then myself and Caitlin were from the Toronto area. So we had a multi-provincial team.
All right. Explain to me the A team, because I love it, but I think that I may be the exact right demographic for that name. And I think a lot of people who listen may not be.
So I think you are the exact right demographic, which is great.
Old guy.
I didn't say it. So there's a old TV show. Was it from the 80s? I think it was called The A Team, but spelled with an A. And we say a lot in Canada with an EH. And when you're Googling, you're doing your research for puzzle team names, the A Team with an A was coming up a lot. And I said, no. We can actually have an EH team. And it just flowed really nicely. So we ended up calling ourselves the A Team. So myself, Sophie, Caitlin, and Corinne. And then we used that name again because 3 of us on that A Team were going to Worlds. So we decided to keep the A Team name.
Yeah, I remember E.B. Karen and I did a podcast about who to watch at Worlds, and we talked about interesting names, and the A Team was one of the ones that I picked out. I was like, that's amazing.
Rob, we listened to that podcast. You should have seen the group chat. We were so excited that you guys got the name number 1, and we felt so encouraged going to Worlds. That was wonderful to hear, you and E.B.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad our little podcast could be helpful in that way. So tell me about how the individuals went for you at the 2024 Canadian Nationals. Again, coming on the cusp of you doing great job at the 2023, but struggling at Worlds with sort of the mindset. So had you done any work? So had you done any work on the mindset? Had you done any work on your actual physical skills going into the 7th month later Canadian Nationals, or are you just kind of continuing with where you were? Because that was successful, obviously.
It worked to that point, but as you know, as the sport grows, other people get better and better too. So we got to do what we got to do to keep up. So in the 2024 nationals in individuals, I did okay. I came fourth, but as soon as I in the finals opened the puzzle, saw the puzzle, it was a busy puzzle, and immediate panic because I couldn't micro sort. That was my comfort zone. So I had to after I came fourth, and I felt really, I'll say, I love the puzzle. I've done it a bunch of times since. It was the Hello Vinyl from
Oh yeah,
Ravensburger.
with the blue record down in the corner.
Oh, it's beautiful. They even used it at Worlds after. But in there, I could feel it in my body that I was so stressed that I couldn't focus, and I I lost because, well, number one, Megan's super fast, and like Megan's
not taking
fast,
anything away from the fast puzzlers,
right? Not at all. They're wicked fast. They're wicked talented, but I could feel it in my body that I was not at my best. So after that, I had to really reflect because, again, all the pressure from being the first ever Canadian champion, right? I had to really think: is having one comfortable tool in my toolkit really going to take me further? And I think the answer was no. So after that point, I actually stopped sorting altogether. And I started altogether. Oh, except the edges, of course. Okay. But I forced myself to practice feeling comfortable with the chaos. And I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And that is how I got through my plateau. I really attribute getting through that and becoming more and more comfortable with different types of puzzles that you can't micro sort by just forcing myself to not sort.
So I feel like this is a journey that must have taken some time.
Oh, you bet.
Do you have a moment where you feel like you can like point to and say, by about this time, I had successfully made the transition, just to get a sense of like how long a time that kind of effort takes?
That's a great question. So by the time Worlds 2024 came around, I was getting far more comfortable with the different tools in my toolkit. So I had converted back to, depending on the puzzle, I allowed myself to sort a little bit. So I used to say, flip, pull the edges, and pull your first project. Mm-hmm. So what's your primary project? So I would allow myself that if it made sense for the puzzle, but then I would leave the rest in the chaos. Right. Yep. So by the time Worlds came around, I was feeling more and more comfortable. And that tiger.
Yes.
That tiger. So I used that new approach I had been practicing where pull the edges and pull your first project. And I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did. My world ranking, it dropped from 75 to 78, but the talent at 2024 Worlds was insane.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So I was happy. I was happy with that result.
If I remember correctly, your time was improved as well.
It was.
The tiger puzzle is hard in a different way than the Italian cafe puzzle is hard. Mm-hmm. I could definitely make the case that one is harder than the other, but do you feel like they're roughly equivalently difficult? I'm trying to figure out, like, you dropped your time a bit. Is that because you felt like you were making actual improvements? Or because like the puzzle was actually more in your wheelhouse compared to the one of the previous year?
Interesting question. So the struggle I had with the cafe was the chairs, mm-hmm. bar none. Yep. The rest was fast, but the chairs were quite difficult for me. The one on the tigers, it was the fur. So fur was one of my weak points for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw tigers come out of the bag, I was like, super, so excited for this puzzle. It's my favorite puzzle.
And there were like 7 of them. There's a lot of tigers in that. Yeah.
There's a lot of tigers there. The fur was definitely the last thing I did on that one. Mm-hmm. And so I just tried to know that based on your strengths and what you have been good at up until that point, what do you start with? And then how do you get the most amount of clues in your frame as possible to help you solve for the pieces that are really, really tricky. So building, the puzzle pieces that are half fur, half water, half fur, half plant, whatnot, that was really helpful. So I think by that point in time, I had started maturing as a speed puzzler and had more tools in my toolkit. So I think that the time improvement is more to do with my capability and the tools in my toolkit and having a little bit more depth as a speed puzzler, a little more technique to rely on, than the puzzle being drastically easier.
Got it. All right. I'm resisting all the urges to dive into all of these hooks that you're leaving me about your process, but we'll get into that explicitly. Sure. I want to just kind of finish through the timeline a little bit here. So I want to circle back to the 2024 Canadian Nationals. So we talked about the individual side of things, but I'm also interested. You did pairs. You did well. You finished in third, which seems respectable. Props to Douglas for helping you out, but that seems like maybe better than you would have done if he was around. So an improvement there. But I want to talk a little bit about teams, because this is the first time you did teams. How did you put together this team? How did this team come together? And also, how did you guys figure out how to work as a team?
This is such a cool story. I actually just got goosebumps because I love these girls so much, and we had just such a great time. So we ended up in first place, and we ended up in first place by a lot.
12 minutes.
12 minutes. So this is one of my favorite examples of team synergy, where, the total is greater than the sum of the parts. So based on our individual rankings and pairs, which I think it was, so I came in fourth, Sophie came in sixth, and then Caitlin and Corinne were just a little further down in the rankings, wildly talented though in their own rights. We came together and we communicated, we had fun, we made sure that if someone was feeling stuck, we switched right away. We pulled out every trick in our toolkit that we could, including some conversation in French and English. It was very Canadian. It was a very Canadian puzzle team. And we won by 12 minutes, Rob. It was wild. We were shocked. We were hoping to do well because we knew we had some good talent. But at the end of the day, we really crushed it. We really crushed it. And if you will recall, that puzzle was like 1,100 cats.
I was going to say, so I'm looking at it, this puzzle has got fur all over it.
It's all over it. It's a bunch of different picture frames of cats and a big cat. And there was none of us had a love for fur, I'd say. We also did some interesting things with putting together projects outside of the puzzle frame and getting them ready to put them inside. So Caitlin, her role on this, we had some really good synergistic roles. So her role on this was our super sorter. And that's the role she played on our world's team as well. So she's got an eye for sorting. And she was able to give us our little projects as and when we needed them. But we made sure to say to her, okay, we're almost ready. I'm 2 minutes out from needing a project. Yeah. It was really helpful. The other thing we did, because we noticed in the qualification round, I didn't have all the edge pieces. I'm the edge lady. So I didn't have all the edge pieces. So we kind of huddled right after and said, okay, let's take another 20 seconds as we're doing the flip and sort at the edge to make sure we've got, 95% of the edge pieces, because then I'll whip through the edge super duper fast. So that worked for us too. That was really helpful. And then as the other three were going through the big pile of puzzle pieces and I'm doing the edge, Sophie, who again was in sixth place in the individual round, she called out what puzzle she wanted to do next, what piece of the puzzle she wanted to take on, which was the flowers, which was quite difficult. So she and the other two sorted out all the flowers, and then Sophie had her pile of flowers. And then because she had said that, I was then able to do the flower edge first and give her the frame that she needed and continue on with the rest. So we had a series of preferences being stated, of little clues and hints being communicated. So as Caitlin and Corinne were sorting out the other pieces of the puzzle, while I was on the edge, Sophie was on the flowers, they were saying, I see this, I see that. This frame is kind of bronzy. This one has a stripe in it. It's hard to see, but I can see it. So they were helping Sophie and I visualize what the rest of the puzzle was looking like, even though we weren't even looking at it at all and we're focused on our little spots. The other thing we did right at the end was, sometimes you're left with this little black hole that's all in one spot, right, and there's 8 hands trying to attack it, and there's only 10 pieces left. Some of us pointed to where the holes were. Some of us put our one hand behind our back, so we actually weren't going at the pieces with 2 hands. And we took a deep breath, and we had this phrase that I'm sure other people use it too, but it really worked for us: pick it up, put it in. At that point in time, if you pick up a puzzle piece, it's yours, you own it. Mm-hmm. It's your best friend. Find out where it lives.
So meaning you don't return it back to the pile.
Bingo. Exactly. So pick it up, put it in. It was something we said at the end. And all of these things put together worked for us.
Did you coordinate all of this communication approach in advance, or did it just sort of materialize?
A little bit of both. When you're in the moment, you have the adrenaline running. In my experience, and not just in speed puzzling, but in any kind of competitive arena, you either default to going inward, mm-hmm, or you default to going outward and seeking out support with your teams. And I think the 4 of us, we were just lucky that our default was outward. So if Sophie's frustrated, you're going to hear about it. Right? If I'm frustrated, I'm going to say, okay, this puzzle piece is in Sophie's hand now, and I will put it physically in her hand so I don't have to look at it again. And we did that in pairs too. It was great. It was a Sophie pile, we called it. With Caitlin and her ability to see pieces and describe them, that's just innate. Like, that's just something she brought to the table that wasn't planned to say, Caitlin, you're going to describe every single piece that you're seeing, every chunk to us so we can just visualize. She just did that. Mm-hmm. And Corinne's ability to take a chunk of the puzzle and just fly through it. She was doing the bottom piece of the desk there, which is like a light tan on that puzzle. And, I blinked and she had it done. So her ability to focus in and tune out some of the other goings on was incredibly helpful in that scenario.
Did you guys realize that you were on track to finish first?
There's always that moment where you wonder.
But you're getting near the end, and no applause has happened yet. I don't know.
No applause.
I assume that there's applause in Canadian Nationals. I've been to a few competitions, live competitions, where you can't actually tell who finishes because people just stop puzzling because they're done and nobody says anything. But I'm assuming that there would be applause, as there are in most competitions. And so you're coming up towards the end. Nobody's applauded. You're feeling pretty good.
We're feeling pretty good. Hands are shaking. Voices are quivering. I think I snuck a look at the clock, and it wasn't past an hour yet. I was like, you know what? We can do this. Pick it up, put it in. That's what we just kept saying. Pick it up, put it in. Pick it up, put it in. And then all of a sudden, it was hands are up. And you had all the judges and some of the folks who were taking some video of it gathered around, and we did it. What a feeling. What a feeling, especially to do it as part of a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially a team who's doing it for this is your first major competition. I didn't ask, did you guys practice together at all?
Nope. No, I had puzzled a little bit with Caitlin. I had puzzled with Sophie. Sophie had puzzled with Corinne, but the 4 of us hadn't until the qualification round.
So a fantastic achievement then.
I think so. We had so much fun as well. It was really an enjoyable experience.
And was it at that moment that you were all like, let's go to Worlds?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Absolutely. We knew prior to that we were going to go to Worlds and be the A team with a different 4th member.
So you knew before
Sandy
going
Foster.
into this competition?
We did. Okay. Yeah. We had it kind of ironed out before. But Sandy had already committed to another team at Nationals, and Corinne was available and just so lovely to puzzle with. The pieces fell into place.
Nice.
Thanks.
So then from there into Worlds, so we're looking at 2024 Canadian Nationals were in May, which would have placed, so Worlds would have been in September. So you got, I can't do the mental math on that, but a few months, 4 months to move along, make any adjustments. Were there any things either at the individuals, pairs, or teams level that you felt like there were specific things that you wanted to work on going into Worlds?
The fact that the team had, the Worlds team, we had never puzzled together as 4. we wanted to try and find some opportunities to do that. And I find, Rob, that the more you can even just bond with your team or your pair, the easier it's going to be to feel vulnerable or have that sense of psychological safety where you say, I'm stuck. I'm not making any progress on that. And saying that is helpful to move you along. It's helpful for your mindset. Knowing your team has your back is also helpful, and not feeling like if you're not going as fast as you can through a clump of whatever fur, in my case, it's usually fur. I'm not going as fast as I can. Being able to put your hand up and say, I need somebody to switch with me, even if they're doing okay on their part, and not feel like you're letting them down, I think is a big deal. So what we tried to do from May to September is, have a few strategy calls on, if this puzzle came up, what would we do? How are we going to choose our puzzles? Because at Worlds, as you know, you can have an element of choice goes into the qualification strategy.
For teams.
Exactly. Yeah. And this coming Worlds for individuals and pairs, apparently I'm a little nervous
Is that right?
about that.
Yeah. Oh, this is news to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can talk about that too. But for we were actually quite lucky because 3 of us were able to get together in August before Worlds and have an entire day. Actually, it's a day and a half of puzzling.
Oh, nice.
Together. Yeah. So we rented a little room at a university gym that had pretty good light and brought in way more puzzles than we could ever hope to complete. And we just ran through them over and over and over. And we did the orange one, that Berlin one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they call it orange something or other.
Yeah, it's the one that had like orange gradients that some people thought was going to be an easy choice in the teams at Worlds because there was a blue one, a night sky, and people knocked that one out. And so I think that people saw the orange one and was like, well, I can knock that out because of the other one. But it was just big, I mean, you know this better than me, but big, huge chunks of orange.
Yeah, it was like, surprise, this one's going to be extra difficult. Yeah. So we knew that going into it. So we're like, let's try it. So we tried that. We also tried the blue Mandela constellation ones from Elspeth McLean that was in the U.S. Nationals. Exactly. So we tried that one as well. We tried some easier ones, but at the end of the day, we wanted to attempt as many different types of puzzles as possible to see what we're good at, what we're not as a team, who can play the harder roles, and how we manage our stress together. And I think that was the key to our success there, how we manage our stress together. Because if you care about your placement, sometimes that can cause some stress behaviors.
Sure.
Right? Just a few. But we were able to balance it, which was lovely. We all wanted to do the best we could. It wasn't about a number on the ranking. It was about walking off the floor and feeling like we put it all out there.
Yeah.
And so we got to practice doing that as at least 3 of us. So by the time we got to Worlds and Caitlin was able to join us, we did some practices in Spain as well. And it was just the best time. It was so much fun.
You know, there's a couple of things I want to sort of dig in a little more deeply because I think you put your finger on like really interesting things here. So one is the psychological safety component of that. I think I see a lot of new teams struggling with exactly as you said, the idea that I'm responsible for this thing and I can't let my team down. So I need to kind of nail the thing. When often what you find is that the moment you're like, I can't do this, somebody else is like, oh, thank God I wanted to do that. Or I can do that. Or I've got this other thing that I'm struggling with. Let's swap. Like the idea that you're protecting the rest of your team by holding on to something turns out to be really the opposite of what is the best for the way the team works. Because most people are like people are puzzling because they like to puzzle. So if you give them some other part and they're like, yeah, great, I'll go do that. Or them having a change of scenery, like a change of perspective on the puzzle. So moving to whatever it is you're doing may unlock some things that were stuck for you. So it's such a huge, I think, early growth step in a team's evolution is to realize that they're ceding a part of the puzzle that they owned is actually a gift to the rest of the team, not a burden to the rest of the team.
Well said. Absolutely. And sometimes that's hard to understand in the moment.
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Because you've taken on a responsibility. You're doing, these clump of flowers, or you're doing this part of the sky, or you have this really complicated building to finish. But two things. Number one, sometimes you just don't have all the pieces.
True.
Right. So like start there. Go look at the pile of pieces, see if there's anything else you can pull, or get your sorter to have another, like a sober second look. But just put your hand up and switch.
The other thing I want to drill in is you talked about the joy of doing puzzles as a team, how, in part it is fun. Like it's pressure filled, to be sure, but teams are often where the most fun is being had. And I wonder, a lot of people think about individuals, sort of like you were talking about, especially in the early stages, is like there's just a lot of pressure. There's a lot of and you don't have anybody to share that with. And you lose track of, I feel like, some of the joy of what it is that you're doing that somehow the team really keeps alive. I wonder how people can sort of take lessons from how the team stuff goes and apply it into the individuals, because I feel like if you can come to that mindset, and I certainly don't know how to do it, but if you can come to that mindset, like I'm having a great time, I'm here to have a lot of fun, it may unlock some performance actually, because you're not getting in your own way. Do you have thoughts on any of that?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes, I do. Plateau number 2 for me, I think I was able to get over about a month before this most recent nationals, thank goodness. And it was all about my feelings and individuals. Right. So I'm a groupie with Jonathan Clough's speedpuzzling.com stuff for this particular year. And I am not a super strong random cut speed puzzler.
Sure.
So that was honestly a little annoying for me. Because I was like, why can my brain not figure this out?
Interesting.
So I feel really good, really confident with the ribbon cut, but random cut, my brain does not love it. It really doesn't. So when Jonathan's puzzles kept being random cut over and over and over again, really cool puzzles, great selections, like no knocks there. It's just this particular brain can't speed run them as fast as ribbon cut. So I finally had a breakthrough on this mindset thing in individuals. And it was, guess what? The puzzle doesn't care about your feelings. It's such a simple phrase. But once I realized, it's here, it's on your table, it's on your desk, it's on your competition table, whatever it is, this is what you get to deal with in this moment. It's not always going to be your favorite. Sometimes you're never going to be able to convince yourself that you even like it, but that's what's in front of you and you signed up for it. So it doesn't care about your feelings. Right. So stop feeling anything other than have a good time doing a puzzle. Yeah, so that was a breakthrough for me.
It seems like something that is easier thought than actually achieved.
Agreed. But if you can double down on that in a few practice ones, like I'm sure many speed puzzlers have ones on their shelves that they just dread. They're like, you know what? I would never speed run that. Yeah. I would never do that one again. That was so difficult. I can't wait to trade it. Those types of things. Sure. Just try it again, thinking it doesn't care about your feelings. All you have to do is see if you can get your personal best on this particular puzzle. Don't compare it to London Postcard. Don't compare it to Air Balloon Valley. Don't compare it to, the most difficult puzzle you've ever done in your speed puzzling journey. Just look at this particular puzzle right now and find the tools in your toolkit that you can most appropriately apply to this particular puzzle. And if you can snap your brain into that state of being, I feel like that's one of the things that let me crack 30 minutes for a 500-piece puzzle.
Wow. So going back to the 2024 Worlds, you've had a few national experiences. You obviously started with the Worlds. You're coming back to this stage. You've got a team that you feel confident in, probably a pairing. Again, Douglas, sorry, that you feel a little more confident in. So what was your sort of mindset coming in here? Again, like you've had some wins that could put some pressure on how you think about things, but you're sort of making some good traction, it sounds like, on your mindset, both on the team side, but also on the individual side. So what was your thinking going into Worlds? What were your goals, if any, coming into Worlds, both across all three of those things?
I had a a bold goal of cracking the top 50 in individuals before I got there. And then I got there and I looked around and I was like, top 100 would be good again this year. I'd be okay with that. That'd be perfectly fine with me.
Is that right? Because you just saw the volume of people that you recognize, maybe?
There's such an international talent that showed up last year. So I said, you know what? It would be super cool to be in and around where I was the previous year from an individual standing perspective, because the talent is just that much more intense. So I was good with that. And then Sophie and I on teams, on pairs, I think we were shooting for the top Canadian team, maybe crack the upper echelon of pairs overall. But if we could be the top Canadian pair, that would be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool for us because, we puzzle really, really well together. And we were able to do that. So I think our overall ranking, what was it? 32nd. So super loved it. Like that'll work. And I think the pairs final, that Valladolid puzzle, just made us so happy in the end, where we were having a great time speedrunning that one.
Yeah, it's a fun
that was
puzzle.
Great. Yeah. And that's the other thing about teams, where the two puzzles at the end were also fun puzzles. Right? They were beautiful illustrations. One was that Venice Canal and the other was that jungle scene. And I remember multiple times we were just commenting about how cute the sloth was in that jungle scene. Right? So we were able to really enjoy ourselves in those final two. I think, of course, we all want to do the very best we can. We all have those people from other countries that maybe we're like, oh, if we could get close to them, or if we could beat them, that would be unreal. But I think we were happy walking off the floor on teams with a 44th, because that competitive landscape was pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, it was pretty steep, that incline there. So 78th in individuals, exciting. 32nd overall in pairs, magical. And then teams 44th. Sounds like you were satisfied all the way across the board. So did you come out of that feeling good?
I came out of that feeling good, and I came out of that even more determined to bump up the rankings in each of these the following year. I think it's a positive feedback loop, right? Where you or even if you don't achieve your goals, you still want to strive, you want to keep identifying your do-betters, what tools in your toolkit you need to continue to build, and then expanding your puzzler circle as well to find folks that you've never puzzled before or puzzled with before, but you want to add them to your pairs trials or your team trials or whatever that might look like, to see if that new experience might launch you into a new level.
So did you have things on your list? Like you came out of Worlds being like, we did great, want to do better. Did you have like lists as far as individuals, pairs, and teams are concerned of like, here's where we need to focus here, here's where I'm going to focus on this one? Or was it just like a general, I'm going to get better and I'm going to do some like thoughtful practice and work on things incrementally over time?
So a little bit of both, because you can always get faster. Well, maybe not always, but a lot of the time you can get faster at flipping. I know there's a threshold, right? You can't do it in 30 seconds, but you could be able to flip your 500-piece puzzle, flip and sort at the edges in 2 minutes, 30 seconds, right? So I was around 3 minutes, 30 seconds, and now I am it's not so bad, right? It's not so bad. So I've been doing drills, which was hopeful for this year's nationals, but I've been doing drills to get under 3 minutes consistently. So I'd say 9 times out of 10, I peek at the clock after I've done the flip and edge sort, and it's like 2:58. So I'm like, hey, I'll take it. Right. I'll take that. Right? That's good.
Anything under counts.
So exactly. So looking at those buckets of like micro skills, maybe is what we'll call it. So flipping and edge sorting, and then edge sorting to a higher degree of accuracy.
Yes.
Right. So it's not just you've got 80% of your edges. It's you're maybe missing 1 or 2 after that. And now I've been watching some of Victor from Poland, some of his videos, and the way in which he flips and pulls the edges and one very smooth hand motion where you're picking up an edge piece from your pile. And no matter what the orientation it is, face up or face down, like image up or down, he has this technique where he can pick it up and flip it in his hand. So everything is the same orientation within his hand. So when he puts it down, he wastes no more time flipping those up. So I've been practicing that, and I am not good at it, but I've been practicing. It's a new tool for the toolkit.
I first learned that when I interviewed Jessa Douglas. She does that where she flips and like she picks something up and flips it into her hand, so it's the right orientation. And I've been practicing that, and I'm in need of more practice on that. But it is really. I mean, it saves you a little bit of time, and a little bit of time over a lot of pieces is important.
It all adds up, right? So for individuals, it was breaking down those chunks of your speed puzzling run. Like, what are those chunks you do? How do you choose your first project? Which image types do you gravitate towards? So practice the ones you don't. Like those types of things to work on the weaker skill sets. But in pairs and teams, one of the things I knew right away I needed to get better at was tray utilization.
Oh, sure.
Right? When you use it, how you use it. So this most recent time at Nationals, we had thinner, longer trays because they would fit on the table a little bit easier. And we also used smaller trays. Like some of the top teams use those smaller trays where they can eventually put them right on top of the puzzle and have those pieces really handy there. So that was quite helpful, practicing a little bit of tray utilization skills for sure.
And were you able to practice as a team in person before the most recent Canadian Nationals?
Were we able to?
Because if you're going to be doing tray practice, that seems like that's a hard thing to do virtually.
Yeah, we did. So I was able to go to Montreal. So I live in Toronto, but we went to Montreal because that's where my other 3 teammates were for Nationals. And we spent an entire day going through. I actually brought 2 of Jonathan's contest puzzles so we could do real trials. Yeah, so that was cool. So we did a 1,000 piece, we did a 500 piece for speedpuzzling.com, and then we just had a stack of other puzzles to run through. So I think we did 10 puzzles in one day, so like 10 puzzles in 13 hours, and we stopped for lunch, so that was nice. So
1,000 piece, I assume?
So that was helpful. We did a couple 500s, but they were mostly 1,000 piece and a variety of brands, not just Ravensburger, to see, how we deal with poor lighting or a square puzzle versus a rectangular one. We did one of the new Ravensburger castle puzzles.
Okay.
I think it was the Versailles one, and it had like a checkerboard floor. And so that was quite difficult. So we didn't take it easy on ourselves, which was nice. So we felt really comfortable puzzling together. And then my new pairs partner for this year at Worlds and this year at Nationals, Katie. So she and I spent an entire day. We met halfway between Toronto and Montreal in a city called Kingston. So it's about a 3-hour drive for both of us, but we went and we puzzled all day long. And we chose really difficult ones to make sure that we felt confident and comfortable going into Nationals. And tell you what, I think it worked. I think it was worthwhile there.
Yeah, spoilers. You guys took first place on that.
We did, yeah.
So you and Sophie ended up splitting up into separate pairs. So you were still on the teams together, but you each brought a new person into your pairs. So what was the story there?
So Sophie and I talked, and right when everybody was deciding whether or not they were going back to Worlds, she decided she wasn't. So we talked, and it was, Dev, maybe you choose somebody for regionals, for nationals in Canada, who you'll team up with as a pair for Worlds. And so I thought that was great. But then Sophie and I were like, but we still need to be on a team. Because we love puzzling together and we get along so well. So I reached out to Katie and
Katie Sicard?
Maybe Katie Delude Sicard. Yep. And she is wicked fast, right? She is. It would not shock me if she's the Canadian champion next year, Right? She is wildly fast and incredibly talented. And so I just reached out to her on Instagram to see if maybe she might consider pairing up with me at nationals and at worlds. And I was so excited when she said sure that she was in. And so we made her pair. We made our team for nationals and for worlds. And yeah, I think we're going to have a good time.
I'm curious. Now there have been 3 Canadian nationals. What does the Canadian puzzling scene look like? We see massive growth elsewhere. Is that happening in Canada?
Oh, we're growing. We are growing. So while Nationals was at the same venue, they expanded qualification rounds and they actually did a puzzle chess tournament this year on the Friday night. So Nationals was a Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday. So they're definitely expanding the number of spots available to register. Mind you, Rob, all of the virtual competitions in Canada sell out within like 2 minutes.
Wow.
There's so much demand. And the nationals registration, I think the group chat was bumping that day because it sold out in like 45 minutes.
Dang.
It was wild. So we, if you want to participate, you got to be quick on the draw and set your alarm for these things.
So there's lots of opportunity for continued expansion, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Absolutely, there is. The number of folks going to Worlds to talk about expansion this year, I think last I checked this morning, there's 46 Canadian individuals, whereas last year we were at maybe 31, 32. So it is expanding. But nationals this year, the other really awesome thing that happened was all of the rounds were new puzzles. So nobody had ever seen the puzzles before. And of the 9 puzzles, 7 of them were from Canadian artists. Right. So it's not only about I'd say the puzzling community expanding and becoming more and more talented over time. It's also the world surrounding that, which is the artists getting involved and the great support from the puzzle companies for a variety of competitions, not just nationals, but some of the regionals. So this past year there was an Eastern regionals in just outside of Montreal in Quebec and a Western regionals in Alberta. So there's things that are popping up all over the place, and there's more local puzzle competitions as well at breweries and board game cafes. And we've started doing just, hey, does everybody have this particular puzzle? Should we hop on a Zoom call on Tuesday at 5:30 and just speed run it together? So there's a little group of us just doing that for fun. So there's ample opportunity to continue to grow this sport across Canada.
Yeah, one of the things that I love, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that the Canadian Jigsaw Puzzle Association is one of the more dedicated to finding artists from their own country than I see a lot of other countries. Not that the U.S. isn't doing it and other countries are doing it as well, but this seems to be for not just the nationals competition, but for all the competitions that the Canadian Jigsaw Puzzle Association puts on. It seems like there's a very strong drive to develop Canadian puzzle companies, Canadian artists, and use those in puzzles. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And I see it happening even at our local brewery competitions where they'll choose Canadian brands, right? Or the 2 stock photos that were used at nationals were pictures of Rocky Mountain lakes.
Yeah, they were still beautiful.
They were beautiful, right? So they're still Canadian. Yeah. So I think there's such a extensive national pride that we have because we've got an incredible country, incredible beauty in our natural landscapes. So they make photos really quite nice and they make a great puzzle. But also our artists are wildly talented, right? So it's so awesome to see our puzzle organizations, including the CJPA, really celebrate that because we want to as puzzlers, So it's nice to see that some of the organizations that are looking to grow the sport are taking that quite seriously as well.
Yeah, one of the first things that caught my eye. Well, there's a couple of things that caught my eye flipping through the puzzles for the most recent Canadian Nationals. And if you haven't done that, you need to go do that because again, some of those puzzles are just beautiful, like even just the stock photos. But I really enjoyed the kind of pairs final puzzle which is looks like, it's a Canadian montage illustration. Like you probably do a better job of describing it for me, but it really stood out. Like it speaks to a lot of the things that we've seen, like the Valladolid puzzle, which was very specific to that. We've seen in US Nationals, San Diego focused puzzles. Like I really love taking the place that this competition is happening in, taking an artist from that area, and then just kind of making something really unique to that competition. Like it feels special to me when you sit down to puzzle a puzzle like that.
I agree. And that particular one, so the puzzle is very simply named Toronto. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole bunch of the landmark buildings in the city. And I live right by the Sky Dome, so it was cool to see the Sky Dome on there. And when we got that puzzle, when Katie and I opened up the bag and saw that puzzle, I said, okay, we can't lose. Like, this is my city. Like, we have to... we have to do this one. Uh-huh. So it was that extra motivation. And it's amazing what an image can do to really jazz you up. Even though, as you know, I say now, the puzzle doesn't care about your feelings. That one really jazzed me up to try and speed run that. So that's the puzzle's called Toronto by Miguel Ferritas. And his puzzles are fabulous. He's got a couple others that we had done for practice too.
Yeah, this one looks like it would be a lot of fun. So tell me about your experience at this year's Nationals.
It was the best one yet.
Is that right?
I really think so. It was the best Nationals yet. The registration list that we got, so the organizers send out, the email with where your tables are, what rounds you're in, that kind of stuff. There are hundreds and hundreds of people on this list. So it just shows you how eager folks were to get involved. But it's not just the individual pairs and teams competition. It was also the puzzle social on the Friday night. It was puzzle chess on the Friday night. So expanding it to have, a casual puzzle area, the puzzle chess. I was actually run by a good friend of mine, Elizabeth Stanley, and she did a fantastic job with her team of volunteers. That type of performance puzzling was new to a lot of Canadians. So
puzzle chess specifically?
Yeah, puzzle chess specifically. I did, yeah.
And how does puzzle chess sit with you versus the standard straight speed competition?
Rob, it's so hard. It's so... Oh my gosh. It's so difficult. And I went up against a couple of friends of mine, and the one round I ended up winning against Allison Algersma, who I've never won puzzle chess against. So we had done some practice things. She's really good at it. And so I fully expected to be knocked out in that round, but I ended up doing okay. But I checked my Apple Watch, my heart rate. It was 142.
Wow.
I was sitting down doing puzzle chess, 142. So she really... because she's so talented, I had to turn it up.
So what makes puzzle chess for you so much more difficult?
Puzzling against another person, I don't love. I didn't know that. Now I know. I don't love that. If I'm puzzling if I'm puzzling with somebody, I want to puzzle with them.
Right?
Not against them.
Taking you down, so, I think. I don't know.
That's it. Honestly, so I didn't love that. And also the puzzles that we used, they were great puzzles, but we had to have them on a 90-degree turn. So I wasn't looking at it upside down or right side up. I was looking at it side to side. Yeah. And just like random cut puzzles, my brain doesn't compute that very well at all. So after I passed the round with Allison, I went to a round with another wildly fast Canadian puzzler, Tess McLaughlin. She's on my world's team for this year. So it was Tess and I, and the first time we puzzled together was against each other. And she won by like 2 minutes. It was a blowout. Like, she was so good at it. A cute little turtle puzzle. It is something that if I want to keep competing in, I'm going to find different ways to do some deliberate practice there. Because once I got knocked off my game and that turtle puzzle with Tess, there was no recovering. There was no recovery. We were laughing about it because I was just like, just take it. Like, there's no chance. I was like, well, which section do you want to finish? That can be yours. I'll be over here. Like, I'm
going to go get a snack. I'll be back. You finish it up.
So she was really good at that one. Yeah.
So the individuals at this year's Nationals, you were on an individual's journey. What was your sort of mindset coming into this one?
Well, I knew like Megan, who was the 2024 champion, she was back. I knew my pair's partner, Katie, she's super, super fast, was there. There were some other really, really fast folks there. So I said to myself, two things. Number one, remember the puzzle doesn't care about your feelings. So whatever comes out of this bag, just go for it. And the second piece was reminding myself that I know what fast feels like.
Oh, interesting.
Because I had sped run a couple of puzzles, Hello Vinyl, London Postcard, Air Balloon Valley. I had sped run them over and over and over again. So my brain and my hands could remember what a 30-minute puzzle feels like, what like a 30-minute solve feels like. And my new personal best for a 500 piece is now London Postcard at 26 minutes, 13 seconds. So
wow,
that was oh boy. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it did. So I tried to remember in the moment as I was speed running this puzzle to get that 26-ish minute mark, what that felt like, how fast my hands had to move, how in flow my brain had to be. So I just told myself as I sat down at my table, puzzle doesn't care about your feelings and remember what fast feels like. And then we opened up the puzzle, and it was this beautiful piece of art that I would never, ever, 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 ever choose to speedrun, and that's okay. So we struggled through that one a little bit.
You want to describe that puzzle?
I do. Yes, I do. I have it here beside me. So it is called A Walk in the Rain by Katarina Mertikas. So Canadian artist, and her work is beautiful. And this puzzle is a painting style puzzle. Mm-hmm. So there's a bright yellow house in the middle with a blue roof. There's what looks like three young girls potentially walking home from school, trying to hide from the rain in the middle. It's got a nice little pathway that looks like it's like a wet sidewalk that's got nice reflections and blue colors and purple colors. It's got a couple clumps of flowers. It's got a small-ish green tree on the left-hand side. And then there's the right-hand side. And this oh my gosh.
There's joy and happiness on the left, and then there's what's going on the right.
The right-hand side, we all determined afterward that this race wasn't actually racing a 500-piece puzzle. It was racing pink flowers. Right. So the right-hand side of this puzzle, there's a really good clump of this flowering pink tree. And to look at it, it's beautiful. But to speed run it, I think I spent 20 minutes on it. Mm. I really do. I had to shape sort twice. Wow. Because I was imagine that, twice. It's because I was putting every piece in puzzle jail, like deal with it later. And then my jail was full and I had to reshape sort the jail.
Explain puzzle jail for people who don't know what that is.
Puzzle jail. So sometimes when you're getting started in speed puzzling, your eyes just gravitate to specific pieces over and over and over again, even though you've tried it 14 times and you don't know where it goes. So one of the tricks we use is to put it in jail. So put it in a specific spot that you've practiced, that you know, these tricky pieces that draw your eye, just put it somewhere and you'll come back to it later. So we call it puzzle jail. I used to call it the Sophie pile and just hand it to her. But since I don't have Sophie to puzzle with in individuals, I have to make my own jail. And so I do that. I put it at the top of the puzzle. And then, you work through the rest of those pieces. But it was so difficult that my jail filled up. And I had to go through all of those pieces and reshape sort everything. So a lesson learned from this year's individuals is, even though you are in a race against other people, if I ever feel so frustrated and so stuck on something that it is objectively very difficult, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to make sure my shape sort is done essentially perfectly. I'm going to look at any little tiny clue I have within the frame of the puzzle that might help a little bit, and just work one at a time. Just work the puzzle one at a time. Many of us, even in the top 10, as we were debriefing after, said it was so hard to get through that flower piece that it became a race of the pink flowers. Who could get through that clump the fastest is who ended up winning. And Megan won. She is incredible.
What's interesting about that, there's all kinds of interesting things about that. A particular part that I find interesting is that if you are in the middle of a big slog like that, I don't know, maybe this isn't true of you, but I find that I can be definitely like, everybody else is doing this much better than me. I am struggling here. Everybody else is getting ahead of me. And therefore, like, this is my problem. But you finished fifth by like 4 minutes. So
yeah.
like, it wasn't like people were like way ahead of you. So did you have that feeling that like, this is really like, I'm losing it here? Or were you like, I'm having trouble and actually probably everybody's having trouble here?
It was more the latter. It was much more, I know I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm struggling with this, it likely means 95% of the other puzzlers here are struggling with this. So I really tried not to psych myself out on that one. And when I heard the applause for first place, I was like, okay, that's okay. Cause I'm getting there. Like I'm almost
true.
done.
I hadn't thought about that. So you have an indicator of where things are, or at least where they aren't yet. Right. You're not, you can tell that you're not so far behind because as yet nobody has crossed the line.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So you heard the first place applause, you heard the second place applause, you heard the third place applause, and I was like, okay, just remember how to puzzle. You've got like 10 pieces left. You can figure this out. It's gonna be okay. But it was difficult, and I think something I heard some other puzzlers say in the past was sometimes you need to reorient your expectations of where you might place in the rankings once you see the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it's not your vibe, if it's not your strengths, that's okay. Just give yourself a second to reorient, manage your expectations, still try and achieve what you really want to get out of this. But maybe sometimes it's not about the number. Maybe sometimes we need to rethink about how we set our goals, and it could be a number of minutes from first place, or in this style of puzzle, is this your actual personal best? Or even how you feel walking off the floor.
Yeah.
That was so hard, and I got it in just over an hour. I'm so proud of that. Right. So it's not always about the placement, even though I'm pretty pleased with fifth. That's pretty cool. But I said to Doug before I went on the floor, I was like, you know what? As long as I feel like I gave it everything I could in this moment, I'm going to be cool. I'll be fine. I'll be more than that. I'll be happy, and I'll be excited for the people who got the podium.
And did that turn out to be true?
It did.
Nice.
It did. It really did. I was so pleased with that.
So fifth in individuals, first in pairs, and then how'd your teams go?
Oh,
that was not what I was expecting.
It's just, I'm flashing back to the puzzle. Listen, we did well in teams. So we came in third in teams. And folks, if you get a chance to look at the image for the teams round, I don't know if there's been a harder puzzle in a teams competition.
This is the first image that I saw from the Canadian Nationals, and I was like, ooh, oh man. I mean, I will put this up against the Jeweled Jungle in the teams in the US this year. I'd be interested to see how folks do on those back to back. But this is a just giant. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's just a giant collage of pretty much everything you can imagine, all in a very tight space.
Yep, it was extraordinarily beautiful. It belongs on a wall as a piece of art. And speed running this, the collective groan that went out in the room. Somebody has it on video. I've seen it posted on Instagram. I need to go find that one. But the collective groan that went out, and I was just so happy that my role to get started was doing edges. So I was like, I can spend a good few minutes here, just kind of zooming through the edge as fast as possible before I have to wade into the pain that is the rest of this puzzle. Mm-hmm. But that was hard. That was a difficult puzzle. And, the top three teams are separated by exactly 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a pretty good performance from our Canadian puzzling crew. Hey?
Yeah, agreed. The first and second were only 11 seconds apart. So
that was wild. That was wild. Yeah, because our table was smack in between those two teams. So we heard one yell and then we heard the other yell and we're like, okay, we're almost done. Just double down and focus. But we couldn't really tell who was first in that moment. Sure. We thought it was the team that ended up being first. But, there's a lot of yelling and cheering going on, so we weren't completely sure.
So did you have any other highlights from the recent Canadian Nationals?
There was one moment, actually, that was pretty cool. So after the team's final round, so that's Sunday afternoon, as we're waiting for the other folks to finish up and the awards ceremonies and the closing remarks from the organizers, there was maybe 20 of us with our jignificant others. I don't know if you've heard that term yet. Yeah. So yeah, the jignificant others.
I've heard husband, but I like that jignificant others is more inclusive.
Exactly. So that's why we use it. So very much the jignificant others and the puzzlers who were done. It was a beautiful day in Georgetown. So we were all just sitting around outside, chatting, reminiscing. Those of us going to Worlds were just talking about what we're excited for. So it was like this really nice moment in the weekend that wasn't at all even about doing a puzzle. It was that community. And that was really special. So I'm really glad we were able to take that. I don't know if it was 30 minutes, but we were able to pause, reflect on the weekend, and just hang out as puzzlers and tell stories that had nothing to do with puzzles and get to know each other. And especially for those people going to Worlds, it was helpful to have that extra bonding time at the end there. So that will always stick out for me.
It is a reminder to me of something that I often ask folks is, could you ever have anticipated that this is where you would have ended up when you first signed up for a virtual puzzle competition, right? Like the journey a lot of us have been on is a journey of finding a community we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
And then finding all of these places to sort of be together, these ways of connecting with each other, both online and offline. It's surprising in the best possible way.
It really is. One of my favorite movies is Pitch Perfect. For a lot of reasons. I think the comedy's hilarious. I think the actresses are great. The singing's super fun. But what I love most about it is the friendship that they build. And for a long time, I was like, oh, I love Pitch Perfect. I wish I had a merry crew of misfits who, we could do fun and weird, interesting things like a cappella, but not a cappella. What could this be for me? Like, where's my Pitch Perfect group? And that Sunday afternoon after the team's round, sitting with, 20 puzzlers and significant others, that was my moment where I was like, this is it. This is this quirky, fun, dedicated, wildly talented group of Canadian puzzlers and their significant others. And we're just this really nice little community that supports each other. And it was emotional for me. That was really nice.
What you need, though, is some sort of nemesis now. I mean, if you're really going to live that movie out, yes. You need some team who's like all dressed in black and like they're going to show up and try and throw down maybe across like at the bottom of an empty pool or something.
Oh, good callback. I like that to the riff off.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You're welcome. So speaking of all of these great people and speaking of heading off to Worlds, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about folks that we might want to watch out for on the Canadian side when we're looking at Worlds in September.
Oh, you bet. You bet. So the first person I want to mention, I have a vested interest in her doing well. So it's Katie Delude-Sicard. Mm-hmm. So she's my pairs partner and she's on my team. But she, in her own right, she is wildly talented. So she'll be on a team with myself, Tess McLaughlin and Danielle Engelson, who are also some gals I want to talk about. But Katie is someone who, like many of us, but has just puzzled forever. Right? One of those people who has puzzled forever, has always been fast, and only recently gotten into really competitive speed puzzling. And her results, I mean, they speak for themselves. If we were looking at Olympic standings, Katie's got the best medal count out of nationals. So she was third in individuals, first in pairs, and third in teams. So she's walking home with 3 medals. That's incredible. Nice. So this will be her first Worlds. So I'm really excited to see what she can do. I really hope that she and I are not in the same qualification round. I would get very nervous if that happens, because she too is a sub 30 speed puzzler. So some of her times. We were encouraging each other back and forth with pictures of our timers and the puzzles we were practicing before nationals. And she broke sub 30 before I did, but I got there, so it was okay.
Nice.
So anyway, she is definitely someone to watch out for. But she didn't know about speed puzzling until her significant other, Martin, showed her a video of Alejandro speed puzzling. And he was like, Katie, you can do this. Like, you can. And so, yeah, one of her first in-person competitions was actually nationals in 2024. And she came second in individuals. And she came second by 1:40.
Wow.
So it was
right
so
there.
close. Yeah. That's it. She's right there. So she is definitely someone to look out for on the live stream, for sure.
All right.
So I think I got to talk about my team, Rob. I have to, right? So the other gal that we need to watch out for is Tess McLaughlin. So she, her very first in-person competition was Western Regionals in Canada. So that was held in Alberta in 2024. And her first in person, she got first place. So that's phenomenal. So she's very, very fast. She was on the winning Canadian team for these past nationals. So, and she was on the second place pairs team for this past nationals. So she's walking away from nationals with a first, a second, and a sixth in individuals. So very fast. This will be her first time at Worlds as well. And she's actually, what I love about Tessa's background is she's a former gymnast, like a competitive gymnast.
Interesting.
So she brings that competitive fire to her competitions, and she's not short on confidence, as I heard in puzzle chess when she whipped me in puzzle chess. It was great. And she's actually translated some of the techniques she would use prior to her gymnastics competitions in, your ritual for your mindset prior to competition. So she's done that for speed puzzling, and she is definitely another contender. She's another one I just hope we're spread out, right? Like, just let me get through qualifications and then I can go up against these girls because they're so good.
It reminds me of, I believe Amelia Lieberman has a competitive sport background that she's translated into doing coaching because it seems like it brings you have a lot of experience working towards a goal that requires all the same skills that puzzling does, but nobody's done it in puzzling, until very recently, because why would you have? And so if somebody is making that transition over, they have maybe a lot of experience with the right mindset. They have a lot of experience about what deliberate training is going to give them. They have a lot of experience around maybe even pacing, we're going to push hard and then we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a break, which I know that some people have only recently discovered they need to do. So I could see where making a transition from a highly competitive other environment into puzzling could actually bring a lot of advantages along with it.
It's so true. And it actually applies to my fourth team member. That was a great transition, actually. Thank you for that segue. It actually applies to the fourth team member we're taking to Worlds, Danielle Engelson, because she's a very competitive athlete as well. She was in swimming. Right now she's still in volleyball, and her team just won the championships in volleyball. So she's got that competitive mindset. And when she dedicates herself to something, she's going to build the skill. She's absolutely going to build the skills. So we're so excited to have her on the Worlds team. I haven't puzzled a lot with Danielle or Tess, so that'll be something we'll have to do between now and Worlds to get into our own flow. We do talk nearly every week, and we have quite the group chat, and so that bonding, that psychological safety is something that we are building. But yeah, Danielle's someone to keep an eye on. I think she's going to be a sneaky success.
Yeah, it seems like your team in general is going to be a lot of fun to watch. What about folks who aren't on your team?
Yes, there are really.
I assume you haven't scooped really everybody
Canadian up. There's too many good people in Canada now. There's so many good ones. So another fella, Adam Gray. So he came in seventh at nationals, second in the teams round. So he is very talented, and he's one of the more thoughtful speed puzzlers that I've met to date. So he's very good at observing and understanding and distilling what other puzzlers do. So he watches a lot of the live streams and tries to see their strategies, be able to name and articulate what it is they're doing, and translate that into his own skill set or his own toolkit, and compare what he might have done with what they're doing. So I think he's someone to watch out for because of that analytical mind that he's bringing to the table. So that'll be a good one for sure. His pair at Worlds is going to be Tess McLaughlin.
Oh, okay.
So the two of them, they're going to do something special. Again, don't be in our qualifiers, please. But but they're definitely somebody to watch out for. But Rob, we have our 2-time Canadian champion Megan Sloka going this year for the first time. So I don't know much about Megan. She doesn't have social media. She just shows up to nationals and beats everybody
and walks away.
And then walks away. But when she was able to get her gold medal for individuals, I loved this. This was so cute. She took the microphone and said, "Okay, folks, I'm going to Worlds and I don't have a team and I don't have a pair, but you probably want me on your team, so come talk to me after."
Wow, all right.
It was great. I loved it. That's one way to do it, because you absolutely would want the 2-time Canadian champion on your team. So that was cool. There's also, for the first time, there's this renowned Canadian team called the Jigsaw Juggernauts.
Okay.
They always wear these super cool purple t-shirts at competitions. So 2 of the Jigsaw Juggernauts are coming this year to Worlds, and they're pairing up, and they are very talented. So it's Vicky Richardson and Tracy Nanamura. We're eager to see what they're going to achieve this year as well. There's one other gal I really want to make sure I mention, because she is from Quebec. Her name is Elise Fortier, and I'm mentioning her because this is the first time I've seen her name on the list to go to Worlds, but she also won puzzle chess.
Oh.
So she's traditionally quite fast in our standings in Canada as well. But she's another one I'm gonna have my eye on. Our bench in Canada is getting deeper and deeper. Like there's a lot of people coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, to me that's one of the fun parts about this. It's just like seeing people show up who you're like, I have no idea. I didn't know you were there. And then
that's it.
People like we had that moment last year with Alice Rowe at U.S. Nationals, where just suddenly like a strong player just shows up and you're like, oh, great. We've reached new people.
It's so cool. And one other thing I really, really want to mention is, speaking of new people and people that just show up. So our national organization has just launched a ranking system for Canadian pub, like this week, like it just happened. And Allison Elgersma, who created the ranking for the CJPA, she's also going to Worlds, and she's been there last year. She's going again this year. So she's our data queen. And I can't wait to see what else she does with some of the data coming down the pipe for Canadian puzzlers, but also more broadly.
Well, you have 100% of my attention now. I like, there's a rating system in Canada. I'm all for this. And a data interested person. I have a Discord for Jigsaw Puzzle Stats Nerds, so feel free to send her that direction or send her towards me. And
I do believe she is on there.
Oh, nice. We're having there's a great conversation going on right now, doing some analysis of myspeedpuzzle.com. So it's a lot of fun. Anybody else on the Canadian side?
That's it. It's not it from the fast folks. There's tons of fast folks, as you would have seen, but those are the folks that I'm keeping my eye on as we head into Worlds.
That's awesome. So the last thing I want to talk about is something that I discovered in preparation for our conversation. It wasn't even something you sent me, but it looks like you are starting a boot camp for puzzlers. So can you tell me what that's all about? And first of all, Canadian puzzlers specifically right now, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So help me understand, like, this seems amazing. I love the idea of coaches and helping people become better. So tell me a little bit about what this is all about.
So we have a website. It's called CanadianSpeedPuzzlers.ca. And what we're trying to do with this program, it's called the Build Your Edge program,
nice.
Which we kind of love. I'm not going to lie. There's there's a problem we have in Canada that we're trying to solve for, and it's that Canada is huge. It's a huge country, and there's not a lot of really dense population centers. Yeah. People are quite spread out. So having a series of in-person things can be quite challenging for the country, right? So nationals is a huge event. The regionals were really well received. The virtual competitions sell out in less than 2 minutes. Like I'm not joking. It really is less than 2 minutes. The virtual comps will sell out here. So we sat back one day and said, what is one of the ways that we as just this little crew of merry puzzlers might be able to, might be able to expand the sport across Canada? We love it. We love it so much. We want to convince other people to love it too. So as we're, especially myself and Liz, Liz Beth Stanley, who hosted Puzzle Chess. So we live close to each other in Toronto, and we're always going to the local Toronto competitions and talking to people. And so far, we're undefeated at this one location. All that is cool and fine. But when we're chatting with people, we notice that sometimes folks are just a little intimidated on getting started, right? Oh, I'm not fast. I love puzzles, but I'm not fast, or I wouldn't know how to start, or I don't know how to build a strategy or whatnot. And so previously we were pointing people to, Amelia's videos or Karen's videos or things like that, or watch the live streams, right? Watch all the coverage of the USA Nationals. You'll see on the live streams, there's lots of tips and tricks. So we began noticing a need to help introduce people to the sport in a way that creates a safe space, gives them the terminology to use, because a lot of our terms are very niche, right? Like puzzle jail, who knows what that is, right? So that was one need we noticed. And then the other need that we had as speedy puzzlers was, how do we learn from each other and from other fast puzzlers to become contenders for that podium at Worlds? Right? We want to get there. Yeah. We want to get there, and we're determined. So how do we bring, a bunch of us together to have those ongoing conversations and learn from each other? And through that, because we started those ongoing conversations like back in December, and through these two things, they kind of merged together and said, you know what? Let's solve for the geographic challenge that we have. Let's solve for new folks being maybe a little nervous to get started and they don't know really how to get started in speed puzzling. And let's solve for just a total vacuum of advanced puzzler coaching or training. It just doesn't exist in Canada right now. And that's where the Build Your Edge program came from. So we've got 2 tracks. They're both virtual. The first track is piece by piece. Yes, we had fun coming up with these names. So the piece by piece track is foundations, right? And the way that we're helping people understand how to choose a track is, if you have maybe dabbled in a couple competitions or really just want to get your fundamentals set, then the piece by piece track is really tailored to that type of puzzler need. The other track is called the fast track. And that's for folks who, you don't have to be pulling 45-minute times, but you understand the foundations. You understand the language. You understand the world of speed puzzling. This isn't net new to you. And maybe, just maybe, you're on average getting, under like a 500-piece puzzle in under 90 minutes would be a really great gauge to help folks choose which track they want to be. Because if we're really talking about deliberate practice and skill building, you have to know where people are starting, right? So that's why we've streamed out the 2 tracks. So actually, after we're done this call, Rob, about an hour after we conclude here, we're opening up registration. So it's opening for our first 3 cohorts. So we're offering 2 of the, we're so excited about this. We're offering 2 of the piece by piece tracks and 1 of the fast track. And, hopefully it goes over well and people find it useful. That's all we're trying to do here, is help people feel more and more comfortable expanding their skill sets and getting into the sport. So we are including, which we're really excited about, we are including an actual competition within the boot camp. So it's spread across, multiple modules. And the piece by piece one, we're sticking with a 300-piece puzzle for that competition. And it is a Canadian brand. We're very excited about that. So I love that you asked that question earlier about, really celebrating Canadian brands and Canadian artists. And then the fast track, we're doing a 500 piece, and it is also a Canadian brand in that one. We love this sport, and we love the community in Canada, and this is one of the ways that we want to help it grow.
This sounds amazing. I'm unfortunately not in Canada, so I assume for primarily shipping related reasons, or are you guys like focused on Canada for primarily development related reasons, like talent development related reasons?
We talked about that exact topic. Like, what would the right time be to expand the boundaries of this particular skill development piece? Right now, we want to pilot it in Canada with a small group of puzzlers to see how it goes over, to see where we need to tune the model. We know we're not going to get it perfect off the bat. See what resonates more or less. But as part of our multi-year plan, I suppose we could say that, where we're looking is we want to grow the sport globally. So many people are already doing it, and we think we can help with this one deliberate practice-based skill development path that hopefully others can absolutely participate in. So we had a sign up for more information type of form that we put out a couple of weeks ago, and there were American puzzlers on there. So
course,
there were,
yeah.
and I loved to see it. Yeah, one in particular, is a very known name. I won't say the name, but I saw it and I texted the group in the group chat and was like, "You're never going to guess who filled out our form." It was pretty cool. So we're hopeful that it'll resonate, and it doesn't have to stop at just the boot camps, right? How cool would it be if we had these virtual boot camps in Canada? We expanded it more broadly for folks who, were within reasonable shipping distance for the competition piece. And then have local events, local in-person boot camps where people can join if they're reasonable drive away from where they are. Think of this type of skill development or talent development. I love that phrase that you said, the talent development piece leading up to nationals next year. What if there's like a nationals dedicated track, or the casual things that my puzzle friends and I are doing where, hey, does everybody have the circle astrology puzzle? Let's get together on Friday at 5 p.m. and just speed run it. What if we just did that for the country? Like, for folks who, if you have it, bring it. It's like a bring your own puzzle, like a BYOP type of competition. So we could do those types of things and just keep ensuring that folks are feeling confident and comfortable adopting this hobby or this sport. A good friend of mine was paired up with me once, and she was so upset with her performance in this pairs puzzle because it was a cobble hill. It was a dark, really complicated puzzle to run. And in that moment, I was like, I wish I had a way of encouraging her, like, let's get your foundations right. Like, there's this cool thing that's happening, or watch this cool video, or do something. But, I coached her through it from that perspective. And I didn't love to see how, what's the word? Discouraged. I didn't love to see how discouraged she got by her first puzzle competition being a really difficult puzzle.
Yeah.
So that's another thing this program can help solve.
I was thinking that one of the challenges that folks have is a couple of fold. One, not having a lot of experience knowing what's hard and what's not. And therefore, just like you said, getting intimidated by a puzzle that they've sort of waded into without knowing that it is in fact hard. Like they just maybe made a poor choice. But also folks who are in it for, like if they're in virtual competitions for a little while, feeling dismayed that they can't keep up with the people at the top. When I keep describing it as like, if you were to join any particular sport, you wouldn't immediately expect to be in the professional leagues of that sport, right? Like a lot of us do sport or hobbies or other things at a local level because it's fun to compete even at the local level. So like helping people understand that you don't expect to come in right at the very beginning being the best possible thing, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of joy to be had along the way.
Exactly. There were a couple of gals that we know from the Toronto puzzle circles who went to nationals and did the teams round. And I was talking to them after, and their team finished that really complicated teams final just in time. It was like 2 or 4 seconds remaining, and they finished it. And they were just over the moon with that, right? And to me, it's a lot about, like you said, learning from others on what is actually difficult, and then measuring your progress or your success against goals that may be unique to you. So that's something that we really want to help people figure out, is what is actually hard. What are the chunks of skills that you can grow and develop with deliberate practice? And how do you set goals that aren't going to discourage you off the bat?
Well, I'm really excited to check back in with you after you've had the first couple of these go off to see how that is working for both you and the folks who are participating in it. By the time folks hear this episode, I think all 3 of the cohorts will have been in progress. Maybe in a couple of months, I can check back and see how that is going for you.
And we'll tell you all about Puzzle Poulet, too.
All right. I'm going to leave that as a teaser. Let's transition to the speed round. First, I need to shout out, so in doing research for this episode, actually, I watched a video, Devon, of you, and I want to say it was 2023, being interviewed by somebody around the Canadian Nationals. And that person who is interviewing you, which was on YouTube at The Puzzling Canadian, actually
Sandra
did rapid fire questions. I've never seen that video before, so I did not directly stealing from Sandra, but I did want to shout out that I saw that, and I was like, oh, okay, well, great minds, I suppose. Apparently, I'm channeling the same concept a year later. So shout out to at the Speed Puzzling Canadian on YouTube for originating the idea, which I totally didn't steal from her, but seems like I could have. So here we go. Gradients, patterns, or fur?
Oh, okay. Does anybody ever choose fur? Oh, sorry, speed round. Okay. Gradients.
No extra chat. Illustrations or photo?
Illustrations.
Jumble or busy ones versus landscape?
Landscape.
Round or square?
Round.
Round. Wood or cardboard?
Cardboard.
Individuals, pairs, or teams?
Teams.
Ribbon cut or random cut?
Ribbon cut.
Do you want to consider that for a second?
Nope.
300, 500, or 1,000?
500.
Do you have a current favorite brand?
Ravensburger.
Do you have a current favorite puzzle?
I don't. I'm staring at a shelf full of about 200 puzzles, and I love them all.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Where can people find more about you?
They can find me on Instagram at Devon's Puzzled, which is not only my handle, but my state of being most days. And our Canadian Speed Puzzlers website, canadianspeedpuzzlers.ca.
Devon Donaldson, this has been a wild roller coaster. I've enjoyed the heck out of this. Thanks for joining me on Peace Talks.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Thanks for listening to Peace Talks. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at peace_talks, and you can send email to peacetalkscast@gmail.com.